That's right, folks. We are doing it yet again, another day, another podcast, because that's the way it works. Welcome on the road, in the wave, and on the other side with me, your host, Paul Carpenter. Today is episode 46. Can you believe that? 46 of these. Amazing. Today I have an amazing person. His name is Dunn Kaufman. Is a psychotherapist and into a bunch of cool stuff. And I am excited to have him on. As a matter of fact, I believe he's ready to go. Here he is. I'm bringing him on now. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dunn to the show. I believe he's there. Oh, wait. Oh, man, good. Dunn disappeared. I'll wait for him to come back and find out what's going on. To see, let me, okay. I mean, you tell me, folks. Just, you tell me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I did it wrong. Maybe I did life wrong. I did everything wrong with life. Well, I just that one we know. That one we know. Listen, it's the way live feeds go. If anything I've learned in this little life of mine is that trying to do a live feed, have it work correctly, and yeah, it's very hard. Very, very hard, I tell you. I don't know what's up with this thing, but it's the weirdest thing in the world. When I ask it to change my layout, right, for my camera, this is crazy. Am I crazy? Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the one who's a little, I'm the one who's crazy. Crazy. That's all there is to it. We figured it out. We figured it out. I'm the crazy one. Let's try this one more time. Because this is what I'm complaining about, by the way, if you're wondering. It says like, hey, flip your camera. Okay, so like I flip my camera here, and I feel like, oh, I don't like the way it looks. But then when I look at it on the live feed that you guys are seeing it from, I feel like it looks, man. Maybe you're not even flipping it at all. I don't know. I think Don is back. I really hope that this works this time. Here he is, adding him to the stage. Dunn Kaufman. Cannot wait to hear what you have to say. Oh, there he is. Are you in? Can we hear you?
I think so. I don't know what happened before. I'm connected through my phone now.
Your sound is super low. Give me a sec. Maybe it's me. Nope, it's definitely you.
It's me.
Can you talk for me again?
Hello. We're like total.
Yeah, your mic sounds really muted. I don't know. It's okay, Don. Don't worry, man. You're fine. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Just unplug wherever your mic is that you're plugged into, and maybe plug it back in. Or yeah. You're fine. Like I was trying to say earlier to the people who are watching, I'm like, this is live. And it happens, so I'm not really too stressed about it. Many times this happens. So
how's this?
So much better. I can hear you now, I believe.
Amazing. All right, and I got earmuffs on.
Yeah, I don't know. It's still a little muffled, and I don't know if that's me now. I don't think so. No, I'm super turned up. It's weird. I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Let me see if I can. I don't think I can over on this side. I was going to see if I can make your side louder in some way, but I don't think I can. That's all right. Well, we're going to try it this way, Dunn. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, man. So, Dunn, as I say at the beginning of all of my shows, Dunn Kaufman, who are you? Where do you come from? And what do you do? Let us know.
Where do I come from and where do I go? Well, currently I'm in Toronto. I'm married with 6 little kids, my oldest being 11. So it's quite the household. And I am originally a computer scientist, computer programmer turned psychotherapist. So that's me in a nutshell.
Right. Okay. Don't go anywhere. I just figured out what it is. It's actually my end. So I'm going to bump out and bump back in. But if you don't go anywhere, nothing will happen. The stream will keep going. Just give me 1 second. Check 1, 2.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Oh, that's what it was. Perfect.
And I also realized what happened on my end. What was wrong with my computer?
Yeah, there was a loop there for a second.
Well, if you're cool and if your audience is cool, I am able to connect in about 10 seconds for my computer because this is not necessarily working for me either.
You're fine.
I appreciate that.
Dunn, I'm excited to hear the story of you and to hear where you come from and how you got into computer science and then what was the inspiration, you know. Oh, here we go. He's coming back. I got him. I have to bring him in is what it is, folks. We are doing this, Dunn.
Perseverance.
Oh my goodness, look at that. We have gotten it to where we know what we're doing. Okay, perfect. Okay,
how many therapists does it take to get onto a Zoom call?
Right. Well, you know what I really do enjoy about Steamyard is the ability to have anybody connect. It's in some way a little bit better than Zoom because Zoom only gives you like a certain amount of time and blah, blah, blah. This also distributes to like every platform you could ever want. So I don't know. For me, I like it. Yeah. All right. So Dunn Kaufman, where were you born?
This might trigger a few people. I was actually born in Israel.
Okay. What part of Israel were you born in?
In an area just south of Tel Aviv. It's called Rishon LeZion. Actually, I was technically born in a city called Rehovot, which means streets. So I used to joke around that I was born in the streets. But lived in Rishon LeZion, did a whole lot of back and forth. My mother was Canadian. So pretty much my whole life growing up was just a few years
going back and forth.
Back and forth and back and forth.
Right. And so at what point did the idea of computers, because I think computer science was your first thing that you mentioned. When was that like your kickoff point for computer science? What was the thing that inspired you? I like to call them moments of hello. I don't know if you've heard this. I don't know if you watched the show at all, but there's a rabbi that's speaking and he's talking about how he met a gentleman who had to go investigate the people who jumped off of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Okay.
It's a very crazy story. But nonetheless, he said, over the years of doing this, he just got numb to it. And he would go to the house, and when he would walk in, there would be a note, and there was a note like every other, and he said this was one story that really hit him. And he says, "Hi, my name is, and I'm going to the bridge, and I'm going to jump. But if one person says hello, I'll turn around and come home." And so I use that as a way of saying to people, who was your hello moment? So like, who was your hello moment to computers, if you will?
Right. That's a phenomenal story, and I hope he didn't jump. I hope at least one person.
No, the guy actually, that's the sadness of the story, is that the guy did jump. And so the rabbi and myself is what I say, this is why the show even exists in and of itself, is the idea of saying hello to you, to Dunn Kaufman, not to the Jewish guy, not to this, that, or the other. It's the who is Dunn. I want to know, and that's what I've done to every person that we've done on the show so far is like, I want to know you. Like, I love that you're Jewish, and I love that you have your connection, and I love that you're Orthodox, and I love all of these things about you. But like, you know, and this is also a beauty thing that people may not know about Judaism, that the reason we wear black and white isn't so much to subjugate ourselves, but it's to allow ourselves to be even more free, in the sense that once you don't have to worry about what you wear every day on some level, you can then really go after the potential of what you really care about, what you really what your obtruse mind really wants to study and go after, what your soul really chases after, and that's something that a lot of people don't recognize when they see somebody who's Orthodox, and that's any Orthodox ideology. The clothing, in a way, is a way of surpassing the earthly realm.
Well said.
Thank you. Yeah.
I just very quickly regarding that story you just shared, it's very reminiscent of the hero's journey, which is, you know, first step is the call to adventure. You know, what is that hello moment? And unfortunately for him, there was a refusal to answer, like, but which is the secondary sort of step in the hero's journey. But for me, it was interesting. I was born in 1982 in, as I said, in Rishon LeZion. We were the only family in the whole vicinity where I would be. Oh, I don't know where you went.
No, you're here. I'm just. We're going around. I like to do a little bit of movement here so that people can. Yeah, you're good. No, you're good. You're good. 100%. Keep going.
So we were the only ones in whatever allowance I had. We had a great amount of allowance growing up. Like, I talked to my friends. I was like, I had the best childhood ever. We were the only ones with a computer. Like that. I grew up. I joked that I was, you know, born on the internet. Like, I knew what the internet was before it was the internet, before it was BBSs. Like, so I've known computers my whole life, basically.
Did you ever get into like internet relay chat rooms and that kind of thing?
IRC, absolutely.
IRC, man, I was a big IRC kid in the 90s, late 90s, obviously. And one thing that a lot of people don't know about me is that I was involved with a group of people who took over the FBI website in '96 for about 4 or 5 hours, and revamped the homepage.
I was sharing a story with some of my daughters the other day about how I didn't like working hard growing up. I also didn't grow up being Orthodox. That was later on in life. But I always looked for shortcuts, which is also, I think, one of the reasons why I was interested in magic and hypnosis and all of those things. Just like, hey, there's got to be shortcuts. But I recall in computer classes, while everyone was like learning to type, I remember hacking the computer system and changing my grades. So again, this is all like way before what we have nowadays. But yeah.
Right, yeah. Where you know, it's so funny. A lot of people don't realize that.
We're having the Jeopardy music going on. Do 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 do.
No, that was my fault. Sorry about that. It's a live feed. What do you want?
Who knows what other surprises we're gonna have today?
No, it's what I think it's what I really love about this, the way that I'm trying to do this. This whole thing is really about being as raw and honest and free form as possible. And also, like, the other thing about this is that I want this to feel like we're just on the phone with each other, where it's not like there's 100 people watching or however many people. Stop calling me while I'm on the show, human beings. There you go.
You want to pick it up? I'll wait.
No way. No way. But yeah, so it's all about being very real and honest with life, and having that approach and also saying to the world at large, I don't care where you are, mentally, financially, physically, I don't care. I want to hear your story, your journey. I promise you, if looked at in the right manner, which is just this very macro point of view, and let's just look at your life and look at these points, you will see the most amazing journey in front of you. And that's anybody who looks on. And so, yeah, that's what this is really, for me, what it's all about. Yeah. So back to the question you said, yeah.
You just reminded me. So while I was working in computer programming, I also worked in marketing, digital marketing. And I remember we would sit in the most mundane, seemingly mundane companies and trying to figure out, like, what's the message we can do. And I remember saying to whoever, every single person has an incredible story. You just need to ask the right questions. That's it. We are all just absolutely amazing.
The thing is like when you really get into it, right? When we start to look at like how many neural synapses we have, the 14 some odd billion, 14.5 billion, supposedly in the space, the amount of space that it is, that's how much we have in each one of our brains alone. If you start to do the mathematical equation of how long the world has been here and then how long humanity's been here, those, like, any one of those little like things that are just like thought ideas that when you really break it down, man, we are awesome just in the essence of being, let alone the mistakes or the words or the feelings or anything else. Just being is like, oh. It's very kind of like, whoa. And a lot of people don't recognize it or maybe know it. Please forgive the noises as well. I guess the city is mowing the lawn today because I literally live on the edge of a water plant. So it's like this perfect house on the edge of like the neighborhood and then just nothing but grass.
The truth is I barely hear anything.
Oh, even better. Okay, great. Because it's, to me, it's like this. It sounds like a plane flying by. So it's great. That's great that you don't hear anything. But going back, let's go back. You said you were raised on computers and you were already like, yeah, but who got you into programming? Like, obviously you were doing some kind of, like you said a second ago, like changing grades and maybe a little bit more knowledge than most. So where did that come from? And where did that was that part of the magic thing? And then you also said something that kind of hit, which was, I wanted to always find the easy way, or I wanted to find a way to make, and that's just like the hacker's line. Like that is the hacker. Like and I don't take hacker to be a bad thing. I take hacker to be somebody who wants to accomplish a goal and gets there in a MacGyver style manner.
Right.
That's a hacker. That's what a hacker is. So when you really look at the ideology of what hacking is about, it's not so much about computers and it's not so much about breaking into systems. It's about figuring out the codex. Like where does ideology come from that I can then go, oh, I get it. And now I can either leave my thumbprint there and say, hi, I was here. Or now I can come in and try and change things and become part of it. And once again, hacking, if you look at it the right way, it's any word. That's what I've learned as of recently in life. Man, any word that if you look at the right way, there was a whole episode about this where there was a person in particular, and I forgot who they were, but they literally taken anything that was malicious in their life as a word that looked bad or a word that you would be like weird. And this person was like, oh no, you understand, I love being weird and I love having the weirdness all over me. And like there was just this beauty. I was like, wow, what a like superpower of yours to take anything that looks bad in life and like just wash yourself in it, and all of a sudden it turns into this golden, beautiful thing that you've created. Wow, that's powerful. Guys who are watching or girls who are watching, take that in. You know, and it's this sort of the same thing. So yeah, going back to that, what was your impetus in learning coding or just anything like that?
So my wife's an early childhood educator, and in the concept of play, one of the elements of play is deconstruction. And I think it's just a natural process. Like I remember, forget coding. I remember, you know, I had back then it was even before remote controls. It was just a car with a battery, and you turn it on and it just goes, like, and you have to chase it, right? And I remember like taking those things apart, and it was like still a good toy. And I think that it was just a natural progression in terms of I used to take apart my computers, putting them together, and I wanted to know how these things work. So that was just part of it. I think it was just a natural part of curiosity.
Right. And then it was a progression from there. And then from there, was it school? Was there like a class that you took or something that was like, or was it just you on your own? And you were just full on your own, taking apart computers and building them, putting them back together, doing the whole thing?
So it started like that. Then in my, I guess, junior high school, I started building websites totally on my own, whatever resources I can find. I did end up going to university.
So wait, hold on. Dunn, at that point, that was probably 97, 98, I'm guessing, or I don't know, around that time.
Yeah.
Right. And so at this point, you're now full on. You're learning. You already know HTML. And and at that point, like, so you taught yourself HTML?
Basically, whatever I can end up finding on the internet at the time.
Right, and there wasn't really much. So you were like inside the internet relay chat rooms, and you were like, guys, I don't know what the hell I'm doing up in here. And they're like, who are you? You're like, I'm a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah, cool. So am I.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to make a website. Can you send me code? It's so great.
Honestly, from what I remember, I'm trying to remember how it all started. But from what I recall, it would have been taking a look, kind of like with the toy car, you know, just taking a look at the source code and just sort of seeing what can I actually figure out from this point. Oh, it's like, oh, here's text. Okay, so what are all these things around the text? Oh, that must be the way it, you know, displays the actual thing.
Wow, you, sir, in my book, that's like some genius level stuff done. Like, if you were a kid, stop.
Yeah.
There's not many kids that can just, like, even now, and I'm an adult and I know some code. When I go and I'm like a web source to look on, you know, the web pops up and you're looking at all the web source, I look through it and sometimes I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm looking at, you know, and there's JSON now and there's this and there's that. And I'm like, man, the codes went too far. They jumped the shark. But, you know, yeah, so, okay, so at this point, you're making websites for yourself. You're now, or for other people, maybe even now. People are like, "Oh, you know how to do this?" No,
I wasn't. I was pretty isolated in my room at that time, just trying to figure things out on my own, trying to hack things.
And then you also mentioned Magic. So was Magic also around the same time?
Magic was actually even earlier. I remember me and I had a good friend. Now that you mention it, earlier junior high. So Magic would have even been before the computer stuff. Yeah, we used to find and trade Magic VHSs over BBSs and IRCs, like bootlegged VHSs on you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, of course, man. This is so good.
Yeah.
And so let's get into the whole Magic thing, because I feel that Magic is like one of the best things to teach every kid, because it's everything. Right, it goes through art, and it has to go through the art of deception and manipulation, and you know, the idea of prestidigitation. All of these art forms that then create this one moment that ends up happening. So I feel that it's like, if you're going to teach a kid anything, it's like teach them level 1 magic.
So
And
I'm gonna rebuttal.
Please.
I was very gung ho on it, and the part of magic I don't like, and I know that everybody who watches magic knows that it's magic, and there's no real deception there. But the individual who's practicing it has to become almost second nature with the level of deception. And my viewpoint on magic sort of shifted. I still love watching it, but you basically.
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. Listen, it's now you very much touched on the point of like it's very much like Jedi, being a Jedi, and I went through a very heavy stage in my life when I was 28 to when I was 31, 32. And I had studied hypnosis and magic since I was about 10.
Wow.
So I started doing hypnosis at 13, hypnotizing friends at school at like 15. In the middle of lunch, I get them into an induction, then I would just walk away and just leave them there. And they would fall asleep, obviously, but I'd be in class. They'd get in trouble for not being in class. And so, I mean, I only did it a couple times, but, that was my introduction into overwhelming manipulation. Like, that's way over the board.
Yeah.
And then when I got into being semi-well-known, I was in Ripley's Believe It or Not. I had my own off-Broadway in New York, off-Broadway in Greenwich Village. And I had 2 world records with Record Holders Republic out of the UK. And one of them I got in Coney Island at the Coney Island Sideshow, which was the Straight Jacket Escape, which was super cool just to be involved in these places and the people that were there. Yeah. So then from there, like, it was weird. Like I was saying, to have like any kind of success in some way, shape, or form, and also just being involved in that world made me want to, in a sense, be more hungry. And in a sense, then it made me very much want to literally hypnotize every person I met. I can't literally. That's what I did from 28 to 30. I feel like I did everything I could to use hypnosis and manipulation to acquire stepping up, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
So,
and it destroyed me. Absolutely destroyed me, by the way. I fell to the other side, 100%, I used it as a way of showing off. I used it as a way of, I would walk around the streets in New Orleans at night with friends, and I would do hypnosis runs, like walks. So it would be me, 2, 3 friends, maybe a couple people who had never been to New Orleans. I was like, oh, let me take you around. And then as we're walking, I would use, neuro-linguistic programming, hypnosis. I would literally put people out at times. Other times I would just use NLP techniques and snaps and touches and whatever. And I also infuse magic to that. And so I would almost like a minstrel walking down the street. Or what's the character with the flute and the rats? Almost like that. Like where by the end of the night, there would be 4 or 5 people I'd never met before that are now friends of mine for the rest of my life. That I still, there's like photos that come up, and it's like, oh, do you remember this story? And I'm like, oh God, I remember that, on Bourbon Street. And I met these girls and they took me up to the thing and we're all having a party. And so there's one aspect of it, which was my own fault, right? Which was being too young. And I would say that even goes into the whole idea of like, don't read the Zohar, don't get into Kabbalah until you're 40. in the same respect for what happened to me with hypnosis and that form of manipulation and artful intelligence. Yeah. Where if you do it correctly and you use it in the most positive of manners, wow, the things you can do and what you know. So I think it's the person, it's the vessel, it's the story, it's the tikkun olam, if you will, the thing that they have to work on in their life, and that was mine.
You and I seem to be, I guess, have the same struggles in the sense that I really felt like if I kept going with this route of hypnosis and magic and all that, I felt like I was becoming a god, right? Like having that type of power in your hands. And I was not humble enough to be able to accept that gift. Yeah. And you're right. Anything could be used for good or bad. It's just, I didn't trust myself with those powers. I really did not. And it could be that that's also my framework regarding why I would look at that and be like, you know what? Maybe I'm not the best teacher to teach magic. I totally see I appreciate all the amazing stuff that you could learn into self-esteem and like you just said, the I don't remember the term you used, right? Regarding the
prestidigitation. Yeah.
There's a tremendous amount of different arts, as you said, that you can learn from it. It's an incredible, and it brings people together.
But it even combines science. If you think about it, there's effects that you do that are literally just science effects. Like when you, I don't know, any trick that you can think of that you can then parlay that and just add some words to it, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, it's something way more than when you add that pattern and you add a hero's journey to the story of what you're. The analogy of something, right? When you like, there's a beautiful piece by Teller from Penn and Teller. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's called The Rose. Such a beautiful piece. So it's him on stage. There's a canvas. There's a vase and a flower, a rose sticking out, and a light that is shooting upon the flower, which is leaving a silhouette on. And then he pulls out a knife. And he goes up to the leaf and he just messes with the shadow. And then all of a sudden, boom, the leaf, like the whole entire, stem falls off. And in real life, it falls off. And you're like, okay, that's cool.
Wow.
And then he goes up to the flower and he does the same thing with the knife, a little bit of a cajoling, if you will, with the knife. And all of a sudden, the real flower petals start to fall off one by one until there's nothing in it. And then he goes up to the last flower, the last rose, and he does something very quickly, and it just bumps and it falls off. And then all of a sudden, he looks at the knife, and he looks at the audience, and he comes back to it, and he kind of like goes to touch the and he does this thing, oh God, and then he looks over at the painting, and he shows that there's nothing on his hand, but when he goes up to the painting and he touches. There's like what looks like a shadow coming down, and then he takes his hand and rubs down upon the shadow, and it's blood. And it's, for me, it's like, what an amazing analogy of having had something beautiful in your life, and in your own unwanting way, you play with it, you poke at it, you do these things to it, maybe not necessarily in a way of wanting to destroy, but as a child would, maybe with the crayon on a wall, or as a child would grab a stick from the ground and break it, or
exploring, deconstructing, playing.
And in turn, you end up destroying and killing the most beautiful thing that was in your life. And I think that that's what that is, that piece. And there's no talking. There's not one moment of speaking. It's just shadow and man and life object that's falling apart through this weird interaction of light and shadow and action. Oh God, what a beautiful piece. Come on. What are you doing to me, bro? Like you're talking about something that's so, I I think almost going as far back as you can with us as human beings, where we're not talking because we don't have language, and we're putting dots in the ground, and then one line from one dot to another, and then another dot above it, and then two more lines, and creating shapes, and these things are happening in front of you, and you're like, because I always go back to what was it like to have the first thought. It must have been the most like everything moment, like literally an everything moment. Like I once heard my grandmother when she was at the bathroom, and she was in the, obviously the door was closed, but she sneezed, farted, laughed, cried all at the same time. And I never understood this until much later on in life. I think it was just recently in like some point, I don't know what happened, but something like that happened to me. And I just immediately connected to this moment when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, it's called getting old. It's called, falling apart. It's called all these things, and, but it was such a moment. And also for me, such a moment, like to recognize that thing, but also have had this thought before, which is like, what is it like to have the first thought? It must have been like, like everything. You must have sneezed and laughed and cried and had an orgasm and muscle tension, and everything must have happened for that first moment of recognition of self, recognition of, oh man, like you have to, that has to have had. And then from there, it's always a recreation of trying to express that moment, whether it's through music, whether it's through art, whether it's through magic or obtruse learning. I think that's what we always want as our indelible mark in the end.
I would go, I would suggest that it's not necessarily an expression at that point, but a desire to connect to something else.
To reconnect, if you will, if you don't mind me, to go back to being part of while being here. I meant
an actual connection with something else. It could be a connection with yourself. Right?
No. I meant connection to the ethereal all, however you want to call that. Right. But while you're here, I feel our ultimate, and I've talked about this in many episodes, and then I start getting, and we'll get into this if you'd like to, it's the whole transhumanism, eugenics thing, and like, is that a positive? Is it a net negative? What is it? And then we can get into, and I forgot the two words. I don't want to mess them up. Maybe it's Gog and Magog for the positive and the negative, and how everything first comes to the negative, and then we get to finally clean it, if you will, from the mess that it has to come through as it shows up to us, if you will.
Education process. Everything is.
And so, and I kind of lost my track there for a second.
We were talking about connections, expression of that first thought, that first experience.
Yeah, so I feel as though, going back to that idea of not talking, that our real want here in the expression of being created in the image of, I do not believe that we are meat sacks is the expression of. I believe that we are conscious pieces of light that are placed within meat sacks, that in some way, through that placement of this thing that I'm living inside of, I don't want to say it retards, but maybe it places blockers. The way that I like to say is that we're quartz crystals. inside of a radio. And based on our tuning of that radio, we become certain people in our lives because we're tuning in the frequency of all, but we're shortening it down into rapper Paul Carpenter. Yo, what's up, yo? I don't want to let you know we're here today with Dan Dunn. Episode 46, yo. You know, full on. I went to 98.7.
No, 90, okay, sorry. I was off by quite a while.
You know, or you do the radio rap or the country version or the classical version but it's what we end up tuning in certain aspects of our lives, of our things, you know, and I'm going to bring it all the way back to you, and where you were with life, and you had just made websites, you'd started going to college, you got into really doing computers and all this thing, and then it flourished into something completely different. And it's funny to me how life always does that. No matter what you do, it's like, what's that line? You know, we make plans and God laughs.
Right.
And it's so true. It's so true. So going back, if you don't mind, to get back to you, at what point does your life do that? And that you're like, oh wait, I gotta totally, you know, switch the screen or the script here and change it.
I would say it's a two-pronged answer, because there's the practical part. There's that experience as a human being in this world where we need to practically do things like, what are you going to do for school or for work or all those things? And then the other part of it is the spiritual part, which is the way that we think about the world. And I would say, to answer that question, and it's very hard for me because I don't know if you're still there or not. So
totally still here, just putting you on so that people can see you and hear you, and that's all.
Do you mind if we just keep the split screen so that I can?
Yeah, you know that I'm still here. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no, I'm just once again, I'm also sometimes my dog is running in and out and making noise, so I'll mic it out and I'll take myself off camera and so on. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah, it would just be helpful for me because then I don't feel like I'm speaking to nobody. But especially coming up with this moment because it's rather personal. When I was in my mid-teens, I started going through very, very heavy depression to the point where I was suicidal. And I was standing at the window of my parents' house in my bedroom, about to jump, looking down, and I realized this is not going to kill me. And, you know, I might break a few bones, which will end up sucking even more. But it's definitely not going to kill me. So I came back into the room, and this is a paradigm shift that I had at that moment, which was, if my thoughts got me to this place, my thoughts can get me out of here. Right? So for me...
Wait. We got to get into that right there, Dunn, 100%. Because in my opinion, that is one of the things that makes humans human. And that is, and I talked about this as well, and this is another reason why this thing is existing as it is. About 8 weeks ago, I went to a festival, it's called a boogie, and I did a hero's amount of mushrooms. Now, within that, I spent about 6 hours in absolute darkness. Somewhere around, I don't know, 4 hours.
Spiritual darkness.
Spiritual.
Heavy, dark.
Just, I mean, bad. Not good. Not good. And so I remember at one point my friend's like, "No, dude, get out of the tent. You're coming with me. You know, we're taking you to the festival where there's music, and you're just, even if you want to sleep there, I don't care, but you're getting out of that tent." I was like, "Okay," you know. And I go there, and I'm still being frumpy, and my friend looks at me at one point as he's going to go dance, and he's like, "You know what? You have a bad relationship with yourself." Hold on. I get up and I go back to my tent, right? Because I feel bad now. Like, I feel I'm having anxiety and stress or whatever the hell I'm going through, like social weirdness. So I go back to the tent and I'm laying down and I go back to my this place of sadness, and out of nowhere, not out of my own volition, not out of my own, maybe like some words that I'm like, oh no, I'm still gonna try. None of that. It was something else, and I'm not calling it God. I'm not. It was definitely from the mushrooms, and it was definitely something that's like so part of life that it does not stop. Like, it does not allow stopping to happen. It was absolutely mind-blowing to me. It was this mind-blowing, like, this understanding of how a flower cracks through concrete, the understanding of how, just at the most core level, there is something that says, like, in the most darkest depressional space of your life, there's just something that just goes ding, and you're like, what's that? And then all of a sudden, that thing turns into this overwhelming understanding of what we were speaking about earlier, of your right to be alive, the fact that you are. And then all of a sudden, this just tsunami of like understanding came across me. So going back to you, you're at this absolute horrible moment. You're at the window. You're like, no. And then something inside of you goes, oh, well, if it was that bad that way, I can actually just turn myself around and go the other way. All right, so I need to know, because I expressed my whole thing. Where did that come from?
I think it's just part of the spirit. I think it's part of who we are.
Like I said, yeah. It's like, it's part of like the actual, it's literally like, if you wanted to be like weird about it, it is like the sperm to the egg. It is, there's two fundamental things that create the next movement of this idea of,
you know what I would say it's like?
Yeah.
You know, in the summer when we do, bonfires with the kids, right? And the kids, try it, whatever it is. So I remember one time we had a fire and it like totally went out because I went to go get the hot dogs or I don't remember what. And my kids are all freaking out. Oh, the fire's out, right? And I'm like looking, I was like, no, it's not out. They're like, what are you talking about? The fire's out. I was like, watch, right? And I just took a little piece of cardboard and I just started fanning it. Meaning the life, it's always there. If you're alive, that hope is there. That potential is there. Right. It's just that once you're dead, it's finished. Like, forget about it. Right. Right. I think that is that little Pintala.
That's are you a Chabad? Are you into Chabad?
I'm not. I love their.
I don't know. I'm asking because there's so many different sects. And when I say that, SECTS of Judaism. What?
I said there's also many different types of sects as well.
Hey.
That's backstage.
But no, the reason that I say that is because of the idea of Chachma, Bina, and Das. Right. The idea of before the thought, the actual thought, and then the actual movement of the thought basically is a good way to kind of break it down, even though that's a very simplistic breakdown of the Chabad ideology. But the idea, right? And so and I always say it's intention is your choice. So the way that you come,
it might be your only choice. Right? Which direction?
Listen, that's like the answer, Dunn. You're hitting my heartstrings when you say things like that. But because I feel that anything else after the intention is not really even real.
It's out of your hands at that point. I'm saying there's.
Thank you. Yeah. What I mean by that is exactly that. If we are these machines of energy, literally what's here, like the little tingle that you feel, is your generator, you know, and like how you create and how you feel and how you interact and how you get excited. All of those things are the vibrational energy machine that you're creating. Like I had this girl yesterday, her name's Camilla, and she's getting to travel to Mongolia pretty soon and get to live with one girl for like 1 month and like teach that girl English and English idea, just Western thoughts and stuff. And she started off with doing, I don't know, some kind of something in her hometown, super small, barely anybody showed up. She made like $500, but she gave every single dollar that she made to this nonprofit. And then she did it again and she did it again. And the point is like, it's not about how much you're giving a nonprofit. It's about that you're putting yourself and your time and your energy into a vessel to help make that vessel larger. Nothing else matters. Like whatever you spend your time and your energy on is what you're creating. And I say this a lot because of what I've accomplished here, and I'm so proud of this. But we're on episode 46 in less than a month and a half. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but I'm trying to create one every single day, and I've only missed out of almost 2 months. We're not even close to 2 months, but I've only missed like 7 or 8 days, and I've made up the days that I've missed, except for the last 3 that just happened. So I'm like, man, it's 46 plus hours, because many of these go into much longer discussions, and I'm sure that you and me today are going to go for a minute. I can feel it, but I also know that you have to go somewhere, so I'll try and be as quaint as possible. We have another hour, yeah. Let's get back, because I want to continue your story and threading it back to where we are and what we're talking about and threading it back, because this is about you. What we I think we almost got into it, but what was your tipping point?
There's basically two turning points. One was that, which basically
that moment for you, right?
That was my start of pursuit of happiness. That was when I started exploring. I grew up in a house that very much rejected God and spirituality and all those things. Meaning, like, if you believed in God, you're dumber than dumb. Like that was the upbringing that I had. Right, like total rational. My father was very analytical, computers, mathematics. He was an engineer. Like that. That was that. Going back to the Kaufman being a Das, my mother was artsy, creative, all of that. So I sort of joked that I got the best of both worlds. But I grew up in a very, very analytical. If you can't make sense of it from a scientific standpoint, it doesn't exist, right? So radio wave, great. God, no, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a turning point of me saying, hold on, there's more here, potentially more here. Let me start rebelling and asking and exploring. So that was my pursuit of happiness started at that point. And that also started my point of saying, hey, I don't actually know everything. And then later on in life, the second point, so naturally I just kept going, with computers and all of that, went to school for IT. I was at that point, I really was exposed to databases, which totally changed my awareness of computer programming, because that just changes everything. Got a job as a computer programmer for a marketing agency, fell in love with marketing, went back to school for marketing, and then just started my computer programming marketing career. Eventually,
when you say computer programming, did you ever get into large language models and a lot of like what's happening now? No. And you're still not into it to this day. You're not into large language models. You haven't like got into GitHub and started playing around. I mean, if you're at where you are,
I don't touch that stuff from a back end standpoint, but I'm very much a futurist. Like I love thinking about where we're going with all of this, what it's going to look like. I've told my daughters numerous times, when they have kids their age, right? This I totally believe they're going to be flying to school in their own drone.
Yep.
Right? Like I totally
way before that, in my opinion, Dunn.
Way before.
We're gonna have a great conversation here in a bit as we move forward in this conversation. But go ahead.
But then eventually when I went out on my own and started, trying to get clients, I ended up acting like their coach and therapist. For most of my clients, I was like, oh, I like this part of my business so much more. So, I had studied life coaching even before that because I knew that I eventually wanted to get married. And I figured these are great skills to have for my own life and for eventually wife and kids. So I studied life coaching even before I got married. Then I ended up getting into NLP, into visualizations, which is actually how I used to be obese. Visualization was like the thing that actually brought me down and kept me off. After visualization was hypnosis, and then psychotherapy. In terms of, I went back to school, got my master's in it, and that was my journey from that time. I said, you know what, like,
So at what point within the journey did you get back into religion or get into religion in the first place? And how did that change your path, the path of what you were doing? Because I know that when you start to get religious and you start to become more Torah observant, you start moving away from like what we were talking about, like not wanting to use manipulation and blah, blah, blah in your life. And so at what point does that happen for you?
So So if you recall, I got a job as a computer programming for a marketing agency. I decided to go back to school for marketing. While I was there, I was still partying hard. And I remember I was at a cafe, hungover one morning. This was a gift from God, 100%. And the sun was just shining through the window. I was just like, I'm like trying to have my coffee, and it's like headache beyond anything. And I'm like calling over the waitress to try and like get her to close the curtains. And then this moment was a gift, which was, this is the hello moment. As you said, everything just paused. And I had like supersonic hearing. I can hear these people talking about 90210 reunion, and the sun was shining, and I'm looking at the sun, and I was like, there's a big ball of fire floating in the sky and nobody's freaking out. And that was my moment. Like, that was my moment of like, okay, there's more to this world than what I'm aware of. And after that moment, I started exploring. Actually, there was two moments. There was that. Shortly after that, there was an anti-Israel protest in front of the Israeli embassy in Toronto. And I lived downtown at that time. And I remember I was going, again, I don't know, shopper to go get something. And I had to go through, and I went through this crowd, and I was like, why is there so much energy of hate here that I just I didn't understand. And so I started exploring. I actually started reading the Quran before I started reading the Torah, right? So like halfway going through the Quran to try and understand, like, what is this thing? Like, I'm not even embracing Judaism, but they hate me, right? Like at the school there was not a single Jew, but there were swastikas. I was like, I'm not understanding like what is going on here. And halfway through going through the Quran, I just started reading. I was like, wait, I don't even know what my own religion says, right? So I started exploring that realm. And then there was a couple of points in the Torah that I was like, I'm reading it like human beings wrote it, right?
Right.
So,
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
I'm charismatic enough. I can write this and sell this, right? But then there was one point in the Torah where I was like, this doesn't make any sense. You're shooting yourself in the foot, right? The Shemitah year, which is like, it says in there, black and white, if you keep the Shemitah year, I'm going to produce 3 times as much produce. I was like, how can you sell this religion if you can't pull that trick off?
Yeah, there's a lot of quote unquote tricks that and this is like one of the first things that I love about Aish, that when you go there, they in no way, shape, or form force Judaism down your throat in any way, shape, or form. They're like, yo, if this is what you want to learn, here's a class on philosophy, here's a class on, ideology, here's a class on mathematics, here's a class on, just take the classes, And there's this one class where they take where it's like, it's a question and answer for anybody who doesn't believe kind of class, and they go through the top 10 questions, and then they open it up as a forum for people to ask questions, there's really like, if there's other animals with hoofed feet, like a pig, shellfish type things, like all these, like the red calf, the this, that, and the other. And it's like, these are seemingly what seem to be like, oh, well, that's just easy. You know, like, yeah, you should be able to find that thing. Like, that's that. And then you can't. You know, and then there's other people that I've gotten the pleasure to meet, like Dr. Gerald Schroeder. I don't know if you know Gerald Schroeder.
Yeah, he's incredible.
He's a great friend of mine. I love him. Got to spend lots of time with him, and even got to spend Shabbat with him. Just an incredible genius of a human being. He liked me because of my metal bending routine. Because I showed him, you know, metal bending, you know, and he was just like, what are you doing in my life, you know? And so, but I love his story of being challenged to try and prove that, you know, Judaism isn't real. And then he's there for 30 some odd years, and he's still like, well, actually, I'm thinking they might be right. You know, and great books, God According to God, The Science of God, phenomenal books. If you haven't read them, and if you don't have the time to read them, then watch the YouTube videos. So, you know, and then I also got to hang out with Rabbi Zelig Pliskin, who's a huge NLP guy, has written 30 some odd books on the subject. And I used to walk with Zelig Pliskin every day for a year. That every time he would come into the city, I would walk him out of the city to his bus. And it was my absolute pleasure.
I'll tell you a story with him.
Please.
I remember, you know, listening to him one time, and I approached him after class, and I asked him if I can ask him a question. And I was essentially complaining about my upbringing and my parents, right? And he says to me, Taka, you're right. You should blame them. He goes, but don't stop there. Because, right, if they produce that for you, right, then imagine their upbringing. So you got to blame their parents, and don't stop there. You need to blame their parents. And if you really want to blame anyone, blame Adam and Eve.
So good. You know, and this is where I came up with the line. It's so funny that you say that, because it's a line that I've come up with, and I'm now going to correlate it to that story, because I think he said something to the same effect to me at one point or another. And I said, I don't get angry at a blacksmith's son for being a blacksmith. In the sense, and the way that the analogy is, if we go back to the 1400s, and I'm born to, let's say, you, right? And then you're a blacksmith, and that's all you've ever done, and that's all I've ever seen my entire life. And at 16, I'm like, screw you, Dad, I'm out of here. I'm a minstrel. Within 10 years, 20 years tops, that city's gone. And because there's no one else to take on the blacksmith job. So all of the metalworking that needs to be done, anything that needs to get done to keep that small city going, dwindles and dies in a very short amount of time. And so the same story, you know, goes to this. When I was in Bali, and I met these two kids who sold just tchotchke items, you know, fake Gucci and Prada and whatever on the street. And I bought them.
Real?
Huh?
It wasn't real?
I bought the McDonald's. And McDonald's has chicken in the Middle East, you know, because most of the people are Muslim. And so I went there and I ate with them McDonald's, not once, but 2 days in a row. And they literally were crying the first day that I brought them McDonald's, saying to me that they don't ever get to eat, but maybe once or twice a year at McDonald's. So me, I was like, forget it. I'll be back tomorrow with some more McDonald's, you know, and I'll give you some so you can take some home with you. Like, what are you talking about? This is like nothing. This is $20 to me.
Right.
And their response is, we live on $50. Excuse me. We live on $50 a month. Between me, my brother, my father, my mother, and our sister, we live in a corrugated shack where only my mother and my sister sleep on a fold-out, camping-style, off-the-ground cot. And both my sister and my mother sleep in the cot while me, my father, and my brother sleep on the floor. And so my first response is, get the fuck out of here. I'm like, run, buddy. Like, go find another place, get more money in your life so that you don't have to, because you're stuck here. Here, you're never going to get out of being the guys who work inside of the thing that open a thing every day and make money for the guy who's giving you the tchotchke stuff for you to work on $50 a month. And the response is, we can't leave, because if we leave, my mother and sister can't work because we're in a Muslim country. My father's leg is broken. He can't work. So it's left to us at 14 and 15 years old to do this. We have no choice. And it's just like, you know, and it's like when you see it from that point of view or hear that story, you're just like, man, this is a really weird world we're in, that we're living in, that I feel is only being pushed in that direction based on towing the line. You know, what a lot of people are calling in today's world riding the Kali Yuga. Okay. Which is the definition of that is Kali, the god, the death of the god of destruction, and the Yuga is a wave. So riding the wave of death, that you can look at in a good way, in a positive way, depending upon how you want to look at that statement, right? And then that goes into the same thing that I said we were going to talk about, which is Gog and Magog, and the good and the negative of life, and how it comes through negative first before it gets to touch the light. That's just the process of living. That's just the process of has to go through the dirt, has to go through the concrete before it can turn into a flower. These are the processes of life. This is entropy in its action.
I would add, though, going back to that story with the 14 and 15-year-old, you know, we're projecting onto them our lifestyle and our way of being. And I can almost guarantee that they are, generally speaking, happier than we are.
Without a doubt. I think an image that goes through my mind, and I don't know where it came from, is a woman in India waking up on the streets. And I've never been to India, so it must have been a video that I've seen or something, but literally with 6 children, and she is being woken up by a child, and the first reaction is smiling. It's not upset that her child is waking her up. It's not that it's the absolute antithesis of that. It's my child woke me up and I'm homeless on the street and I don't care, you know, and it's like, wow.
I don't know if it's I don't care. It's grateful. It's really just two parts to it. One, connection, social connections, family connections, deep connections is something that, you know, the research is completely conclusive on this, right? Meaning the COVID did those who are isolated a real, just knocked them on the head, right? The depression, the anxiety and all of that from those who are isolated is just forget about it. Mm-hmm. Right? So there's one connection, but then two is just really just a practice of gratitude there that most of us have not really been exposed to growing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a quote, and I'm going to look it up right now. Michael J. Fox just said it, and I talked about it just the other day. Let me see, gratitude quote. And it was just this gorgeous way. Optimism is really rooted in gratitude. Optimism is sustainable when you keep coming back to gratitude. And what follows from that is acceptance. Accepting that this thing has happened and you accept it for what it is. It's almost the serenity prayer. You know what I mean? God, grant me the serenity, you know? To have the courage to accept. I mean, it's just but it's coming from a guy who's doing this.
Right.
You know, and I'm not making fun of him. But I'm saying this has not got to be easy all day long.
No, and it's
just the muscle action of this has to be so tiring.
Absolutely. So this is when you read the quote, I was like, I don't necessarily agree with it, but at the same time, I got to humble myself. He has probably gone through a lot more challenges than I have. So I have to now just be like, what can I learn from that? Because I can't put myself in the same sort of category to be able to say, hey, you know what? No, I don't agree. So
it's like this very, like I said, man, this thing is a journey of learning.
It is.
And I touched on it before, and I talked about what I believe our essence is, what we're supposed to try and do while we're here is become conscious light. And what I mean by that is, if we went back to 50,000 years ago, we're sitting around fires, we're eating meat, we're doing dots in the sand and writing stuff. I believe our want then was to be able to take whatever was going on in here and be able to express it in a way where I don't have to talk. And so if I take that mentality and I take that ideology, it's I want to become conscious light. And I want you to also become conscious light, so that when I say or think a thing, you, without even a brief moment of thought, already know what I know and already feel what I feel. So let's take that onto this other thing and use this idea of what's called technology as a way of inferencing or interfering the consciousness to light. My thought is that we are on a journey of manipulating ourselves to become that inexplicable, undeniably weird thing that I cannot understand. But on some weird level, and this is where it gets weird, become my own God, while not necessarily being my own God, but being part of that which is God, and therefore you are God.
It's like
exactly. It's a very, and the way I like to say it is like this. You're inside of a holodeck that has the opportunity within it, if you so choose, to create your own holodeck. But as soon as you do, that holodeck that you were in no longer exists. Because you're now creating your own timeline, your own creational space, your own thing.
It negates the original holodeck, though. Right?
Well, you can't have two holodecks inside of each other.
The way I imagine is like this. You know, like, I'm imagining a little kid inside my brain, you know, like flying a kite in some beautiful meadow, right? And as long as I keep that image in my head, that kid exists, right? And all of us are, from my standpoint, all of us are in God's thoughts. And the moment he stops thinking about this, it's over. But at the same time, it gives us the opportunity to, because it's more real, because God created it, for us to reconnect, or not to reconnect, to connect, to somehow reach out to the limitations of the thoughts and really just embrace whatever the hell this thing is. But then at the same time, trying to navigate, you know, towing the line. How the hell do you manage both? Right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, but that's also like, and that gets me into like the idea of eugenics and I didn't know this until just about a week or 2 weeks ago, that the entire educational system is built off of a Prussian ideology. Did you know this, by the way?
Say more.
I was absolutely blown away by this. 3 people in particular are very much involved. I'm going to look it up really quickly. It's a post I just posted the other day. And it was something to me that was just like, I did not know this about why this was created. So the Prussian ideology ends up becoming the Nazi ideology. This was by John Gottlieb Fitch, John D. Rockefeller, and Horace Mann. These are the 3 gentlemen that basically modeled what's called the compulsory education standardized curriculum system. Part of it was based on the idea of wanting to give everybody the ability to learn, The other part of it was that John D. Rockefeller wanted to have cheap labor, and I believe it was Horace Mann who was going back and forth to Germany and taking courses from the German oligarchy and by all of the people who were in the government, and then learning all of their techniques, and then coming to the United States and then implementing it here in the United States. And within less than a 4 or 5 year period, the entirety of the United States and forced education was placed into the United States. So it's like this overwhelming, like, wow, man, I didn't know that was all part of that, right? Now, going back to the 1890s in the United States, you look it up, there's something called the American Eugenics Society. And this lasts until the 1920s. And around that time, all of the information that was compiled and all the studies was sent to Germany, where the SS pick it up, keep doing some weird, crazy science, and then at the end of that, Operation Paperclip takes all of those crazy scientists, including Werner von Braun, and create NASA. And a bunch of other things. MK Ultra is also created out of that, and a bunch of other now disclosed, or I should say, now disclosed craziness that was going on at the time.
Yeah.
All of this leads me to saying that for a very long period of time, we all agreed that eugenics is wrong, that creating this perfect race is wrong. But we have just let the genie out of the bottle. This artificial intelligence, this large language model, this idea of recreating the neural processes of the mind. And in essence, creating what could be the stamp of extinction to who we are. And as Elon Musk says, the only way to really deal with this is to become part of this. So my question to you is, what's what? Is this idea that when we get here's my what I believe will happen. 10 years from now, we have the ability to prick ourselves with our blood, go to a machine, and it goes, da, 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 da. Here's your genetic code. Here's your chances of cancer. Here's your chances of diabetes. Here's your chances of this. Here's your chances of that. This is what we know about you so far. Here's what we have in the database of the last 30 years of your life through the internet. Oh, but by the way, take this new mRNA vaccine, and it now cleans your genetic code of any cancer. It cleans your genetic code of diabetes, of Alzheimer's, of getting old. You'll now live an extra 30 plus some odd years because of this. At what point is that no longer acceptable, but it's okay today to accept a pacemaker? At what point, because there's a very awesome philosophical ideology in Judaism, which is like, I'm not my nail, I'm not my hair, I'm not my eyes, I'm not this, I'm not my brain, there's nothing that's here physical that makes me in any way, shape, or form. So if that's the case, I'm wrestling, as you can tell, Dunn. I'm wrestling heavily with transhumanism, as I'm super transhumanist. I totally understand the ideology. I understand where they're coming from and where they're going to and and why. But I can also see the absolute opposite side of that, which is like, whoa, this is terrifying. It's all about control. It's all about hive mind. It's all about, and so I wrestle with this idea. Maybe I'm just one of these people in the 1890s. It's like light bulbs are bad. You know, I just don't understand. We as a human race don't understand that level of thinking, that level of consciousness, because we have never existed within that level of consciousness. And so it's hard for us to be able to say, it's like 1950s. Them damn kids with their rock and roll music, it's the same thing as far as I'm concerned. But then saying that hurts my heart because then on some level I'm like, yeah, Hitler was right. And that's like, well, I can't say that. That's not true. Hitler was not right. But then wait a second. If I see what I see in biochemistry, what I see in genetics right now, what I see in all of the technologies that are building right now, it is the absolute cleanliness of the human race. And it is absolutely eugenics. So it's tough. This is a tough one, Dunn. This is a tough one.
I'll take it even further. When I was in university, I did a research paper on prosthetics and
I hope you don't mind. I'm going to kick off the camera just for a second because I'm going to get some extra coffee. But I'm listening to you, and I'm here.
And the research paper was basically going around asking students on campus, if you had the option, let's say you were amputated, and you had the option to replace your arm, would you? And pretty much 100% of people said, yeah. And then I took this further. I said, what if you can get an even better arm than your original arm? Like an arm that can throw a perfect pitch, playing baseball. And at that point, it started to create a little bit more tension in people because they realized that the potential is like, where do you stop? Because if you can replace your arm, then maybe you can replace your legs as well and become the fastest person in the world.
Right.
And if that's the case, like, why not just take our brains and just put it in a robot where there is no cancer, there is none of this, right? Where you are just a seemingly a self-aware being. I don't have an answer for it as to where all of this is going.
No, I'm with you, Dunn. This is a very hard question. What I'm asking is very intense. It's not easy. It's also another reason why I think I'm doing this is because I'm trying to come to terms with what I'm seeing in the world around me. And I'm wondering even, are we going to even get to reach that space? Because I feel as though, go ahead.
I'll say it a different way. So when I became a servant, right, I remember a lot of my friends would say to me, they would ask me about either the age of the universe or, because there's Gerald Schroeder explains it as, the way that science explains it. And then there's the more traditionalists who say, no, it's only 6,000 years old. And if that's the case, what about the dinosaurs? Right? Like, do they exist? My current answer is it makes no difference to me. And this, I would probably say, is the same answer I would give you as well. It doesn't make a difference to me whether or not dinosaurs exist.
It's something that right.
The question is it going to make me a better human being or not?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to make me nicer to my kids? Is it going to make me, nicer to my wife and to you and to say hello to that person who was walking to the bridge?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not, it's as you said, like we could be using our brains before you said, like intention is the only thing that we're responsible for. So how are we using our thoughts? How do we spend our days? And really and I guess, at least from a Jewish standpoint, and I'm assuming most religions as well, that's really the only question that's going to be answered or asked, when you get up to wherever you're, whatever's past here. How did you make use of your time? I don't know if you ever read, Aryeh Kaplan wrote this beautiful concept of what Gehenna, what hell is, right? Mm-hmm. And all he said was, hell is the experience of all the things that you've done when like living in the resentment and the regret of just not having done what you could have done and who you could have become. And I was like, oh, fuck, man.
Yeah. Oh, no, I've heard it like the one that I really enjoyed. And then I came up with my own. But what I've really enjoyed is there's two of them. But the one that I liked is you stand in front of a mirror of the perfect version of yourself. And until you can become okay with what you didn't become, then you can enter in. And it's like, woo! You know, or the other one is like, yeah, the other one that I like to say is, as we live, we create a callus around our lives, around ourselves, around our soul. And as we go back to the light of creation, it is like the same thing as a solar flare. I go, you're nothing more than a solar flare, right? Like, you are this amazing thing that pops out, but the gravitational pull of God is so great that no matter what you do, no matter how powerful you are, you get sucked right back in. And there's this awesome process that happens of cooling, of that happens, and then this awesome process of burning back in. That if you watch a solar flare happens, that is so beautiful to watch. Because it's amazing that only that small amount of distance and that amount of time away from the sun, that this thing cools off. What? Like, how? It's so cool. And you know, it's just the beauty of existence. There's a show that I love to promote. It's called Veritasium on YouTube. Please check out Veritasium.
How do you spell that?
Veritasium. Maybe Tasium.
I'm sure.
Maybe ASUM. It's a very well-known YouTube channel, and just look up if you want a really good episode. It's the number that will change the way you look at the world. It's literally the name of the title. I think it's something to that. And that one episode, it talks about the Mandelbrot set, and it talks about this one constant. It's 4.699, and I'm forgetting the name of the gentleman, but it's this amazing constant that happens within this fractal of a curved sequence. Anything that has like a bell curve in it or whatever, it has this ability to run a doubling sequence in nature is what it's talking about. And it's talking about, he starts off with just rabbits and how rabbits will naturally raise or have less children based on the predatory animals that are in the area or when they show up. And he starts to show this mathematical sequence, and then when he takes that mathematical sequence and then does it on a 3D plane and he pulls it out, it shows the Mandelbrot set. And it's just, I mean, just the beauty of the math of this idea that it's also infinite in the sense that this 4.699 within this thing happens at this interval that's perfect, nonstop throughout the entirety of the numbers. And it's just like where and who and how could you not say that that's not something that was manufactured in some way? Say, you know, like it's too perfect. It's too. I said that to a friend of mine once who was Rastafarian as I'm smoking a joint with her at a lake, and I said, "Have you ever looked at the ripples in the water?" And she's like, "Yeah, all the time." And I'm like, "Have you ever noticed that they're too perfect?" And she's like, "Too perfect? What do you mean?" And I was like, "Man, mathematically, that's pretty intense." Like if you think about how each time you throw a pebble and it creates this perfect doubling sequence of mathematical ripples from the first thing that you if you look at the blade of a grass on the ground and only concentrate on one blade of grass and then step up and then look at the entirety of a field in the backyard of a home, let alone a field in the middle of nowhere, it's like, bro, how can you not get that that's math on like zeros and ones on a level that is like, make that LLM model, you know, like go ahead, try and create one of those large language. And by the way, they've actually done the math behind it on being able to create a video game that would be so real that you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Right.
And it doesn't take a lot of space, by the way. It's basically one computer per person. And then we go back to the statement we were talking about with the 14.5 billion light years in your brain and how your neural synapses. And so wait a second, we already are the computer that we are. And so it's like, so why are we recreating something that we've already created? Is it because technology really isn't our friend? Is technology the thing that actually takes us away from humanity? Here's another one. Are we living in a simulation because you and I and everybody who is alive are actually scientists from the future that forgot what humanity was, and so we went and put ourselves into a thing that makes us remember what it's like to feel and touch and eat and have sex and kiss and fight, and through that, this is my little thing, that through that thing, at the end of it, you wake up and you're on stage and you're carrying this weird thing. And then all of a sudden, you know instinctively to just place this thing into this awesome art piece. And then right as you place it in, you realize, oh, crap. And you're in the audience watching the piece of art being created.
The Matrix.
A little bit more than the Matrix, because the Matrix says that we're nothing more than inside of a thing that was created by robots that are trying to basically live off of our energy. And what I'm saying, on the other hand, is that you're part of this absolute awesome art project, science, magic trick that is all about remembering the essence of what we are in the first place, which is to share, to love, to give, and to grow. And that anything else other than that is the antithesis of the creator, right? It's opposite of the creator. And what is that? Also the creator, but only created so that you can recognize creator. Like, what the bling bling, bro?
I think eventually what's going to happen is that we're gonna see the limitation of our own abilities, right? Where this universe stops and God begins, or well, there is no, but where the universe stops. I remember growing up, I wanted to become an astrophysicist because I was like, I want to be able to get to the end of space.
Yeah, I remember the same. I remember, Dunn, you and I have so much connection, bro. I wanted to know how to get out from like the age of 6. Okay. I just wanted to know how to get out. Yeah, and it wasn't that I was, well, that's not true. I was very unhappy as a child, but it was like something that was like almost immediate to me. Like I saw the patterns of school. I saw the pattern of like, oh, I'm in a jail. This is a jail, bro. You're putting me in a place where you're like forcing me here to be in this thing that stops me from being with my mom and stops being in my place of awesomeness, which was my room. Bro, my room, when I was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, from those years, like, bro, I was awesome. And I lived in my own world of awesome. And I was a singer. I was an actor. I was a magician. I was a character. I was everything that I could ever want to be. And it's what is in my opinion, my special superpower. Like you have your own, which we've noticed a couple of times already, you know. But like for me, my super special power is like I'm anything and I don't care. Like podcast, no problem. Let's go. Magician, I can do that. Hypnotist, let's go. Writer, let me sit in front of a computer. And it's great. This is going back to Zelig Pliskin. He's like, someone goes, this is such a great line. Someone goes, man, he goes, because I've written 30 some odd books. And the person in the school goes, wow, like 30 books. How'd you do that? And he goes, I'm going to show you how. It's really easy. He goes, Can you write one word? And the girl's like, well, yeah. And he goes, can you write another word after that? And she goes, yeah. And he goes, continue doing that for like 500, 600 words. I mean, really.
Dude, it's what you're doing with the podcast. You're on 46 right now.
It's the idea. Right. The idea, it's all about the content, right? And I think that if you do like we've said this already, but authenticity is what matters. If you're coming from a place of reality, a place of realness, the people who matter will see it. The people who matter will share it. I mean, I've one of the things I like to do in every episode is there's a couple people who have been absolutely amazing. There was an Aramaic scholar. His name is Jacob. He was episode 24, if you haven't seen it, and he goes through the whole entire alphabet. Well, not all of it because I cut him off too many times. But he became a sponsor of the show, and he's throwing $50 a month towards me to keep this thing going. And then there was another woman who came in, and she threw $250 at the show. And so the fact that that even happened, done. I'm good. Like, if this goes nowhere, you know what I mean? And I never do another episode, and it's not the money, it's the acknowledgement of the action, period. Or times when I write, like, oh man, someone didn't show up today, and the amount of support that comes in is like, yo, but don't worry about it. One show's no big deal. And for me, I'm on this whole, but no, I'm doing a whole episode every day, 365, world record, let's go, so when that, I'm very much a Virgo.
Okay.
Not that I believe in that, but not that I believe in horoscopes in that manner, but I do have that idea of, if I have something in my mind and I've already placed it there and it's supposed to be like that and it doesn't turn out like that, I get very poopy. And I think that that's part of, like, I feel that that's because on some level I have, or maybe I was, when I was younger, I was misdiagnosed, and I should have been diagnosed as having Asperger's on some level. Because when I'm around people with Asperger's, I feel at home. Can't explain it. And people who have Asperger's, many parents are like, whoa, how'd you get my kid to hang out with you? And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, oh, my kid doesn't like anybody. I'm like, I don't know, I'm a weirdo, and they like weirdos, and I'm a weirdo, I'm a weirdo. I don't know what it is. But there's almost like, and I've read a lot of stuff on it. It's really intense to see that all kids who are geniuses have family members who have Asperger's, or have themselves a level of Asperger's, and that their memory aspect of their brain is massive. But then on the unfortunate aspect of that thing is that the social, ideologies and all these things are just right out the window. Like, no, tie my shoe for what, bro? I'm trying to get stuff done. And so. Yeah. And then there's also this weird thing that, like, I find myself when I think one of my superpowers is, if, like, for instance, like, somebody just gave me a list and he was like, yo, I need you to get through this list of people and contact them. And then there's this thing that happens to me, and it's the same thing that happens to me when I do magic, where, and it was, I'm totally jumping everywhere, but a friend of mine did a reels yesterday, and he's in Japan, and he's like, man, I went on my walk today, and as I got to the place where I normally take a right on the thing, I looked at the map, and I was like, oh, this looks like a cool trail. I've never taken this trail before. I've taken that trail today. Let's do something new. And so he starts to take the trail, and as he does, he comes up to a turn, and there's stairs. And he's like, oh, okay, stairs. Goes up the stairs, gets to the top, turns, another set of stairs. And he's like, oh, God. And he climbs up to the stairs, goes up, another set of stairs. And he's like, okay, this is not fun anymore, A. B, I have other things I have to do in life. I don't have the time, maybe. I don't have this, I don't have that. And he's like, stairs, and he goes up the stairs. And then by the fifth stairs, he's like, okay, I guess it's just stairs
forever.
well, let's keep moving. and he does 6, and he does 7, and he does 8, and he's exhausted, and he's at the top, and he's covered in like trees and bushes around him. And he's making the video, and he's like, I got to the end of this thing, and I'm here. He goes, and he stands up, and he goes, but the view is amazing. And he turns, and he's just kind of huddled in like a bush, with a bunch of grass around him. But as he stands and he turns, it's the entire city of Tokyo behind him. And this amazing moment that he has. But my trigger point of all of that was, okay, well, I guess it's just stairs. I don't know what happens to me, but when I'm going through like a list and I'm having to go, okay, well, I have to do this to get this, to do this, to do that, to do this, to do that, to do this, to do that, to get that one done, and now move on. I have to do this, to do this, to get this, to that, to that, to that, to this, to this, and then I did the second one. There's something that happens to me where it's like, it's just fucking stairs, bro. And I can just get through it in a way that other people can't seemingly get through it. And that's my superpower. I don't know what it is. I can learn a card trick in a day. I can learn a new cigarette vanish or whatever in seconds. It's something that is just innate in me. And it goes back to what you were saying, that you have to get to a certain level of manipulation. And this is almost a level of Buddhism, where everything is pain in life, and no matter what, I'm going to go through pain, but I'm going to learn how to manipulate the pain within myself so that I can get past it to get to the next stage, whatever that is. Whether that is me having to put a thing of metal and bend it, or whether it's me having to jump higher than I normally can, or whatever I'm doing, physically, mentally, spiritually, on some level, it's all about pushing past that. I don't want to call it pain, but pushing past that threshold, that line.
Through the concrete. It's like the flower that goes through the concrete. Your potential is on the other side. But Paul, I'm looking at the time, and I got to climb.
Yeah, I know. I saw it. Listen, we have to do another episode together. This was so good, man, and I wish we could have gone much longer.
Barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, man, really. We haven't even gotten into Palestine and Israel and all the things that are going on in the world and Ukraine and blah, blah, blah. We have so much to talk about, Dunn. And I'm so happy to have had you on. So good. So listen, before we go, how can people find you if people wanted to maybe go and take I don't know, maybe you have the ability to have a session with you or a one-on-one call or anything for people who are watching who may have enjoyed your energy and your thinking. How do they find you?
I definitely appreciate that. I think you're probably just going to add in my website link, and hopefully I'll start producing a lot more content. But just DunnKaufmanTherapy.com. Would be happy.
So it's your name, Dunn Kaufman, right?
Sorry?
It's your name, DunnKaufmanTherapy.com.
You got it. But cool. One, I want to say thank you very much for doing this. This is amazing.
Yeah, man.
I want to give you a blessing that this will just keep going and flourishing, and just, I don't doubt that you're going to hit that concrete here and there throughout this journey, but you're going to just keep producing flower after flower. And I for sure will look into whenever you feel comfortable to have another time together.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to literally tell you right now, hang up with me and set up another one, whenever you want, whenever you're ready, even if it's in the next week or so. I don't care. So I'll do Dunn Kaufman episode 2, 3, 4, and 5, because I love the way we riff off of each other. I love the way that you add in little bits to things that I've said that only solidify and kind of, if anything, quantify things and feelings that I've already had, placing them onto another level. So I appreciate that there's a resounding chamber in you. And that also there's so much that we've hit in our own lives that are so similar. And yet so many things that are completely off into the total tangents, right? Yeah, no, it's
I want to get to know you as well. I think.
Yeah, man, 100%.
I think we can have
start a podcast and have me as a guest.
Sorry,
did you hear me? I said I start a podcast and have me as a guest. yeah, that's a thing. Dunn, it's a thing. You were saying like create content. What I've learned from a friend of mine whose name is Armando Leduc. I'm working for him. I'm doing consulting work and little things for him in his office. And he makes 100 pieces of content in one day. So he goes to somebody's office and shoots 100 pieces of content in one day. And I'm like, how do you do that? And he's like, long form content, bro. Yeah, we shoot 3 podcasts. 3 podcasts that are 45 minutes apiece. Gives us so much content you have no idea, and then we shoot little things inside the office or at the blah 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 whatever. And yeah. Dunn, thank you, man. Yeah, man. We'll see you soon.
This has been awesome.
Yeah, man. No worries. Oh my goodness! Another awesome episode. I have not lied to you. I have not lied to you. Every episode awesome. Every episode learning. Every episode growing. And how many awesome little sparks of fireworks where the episode kind of called back to its own self, as it's happened a couple of times while we've had this thing go on. Super cool. My friends. Please, if you would not mind, go out into the world, do something nice for somebody else. And if you can't, do something nice for yourself. It does start with you. Number 2, don't get caught up in all the crazy stuff, the flat earth and the this and the that and the Fibonacci thingy and, all over the place. Jacob Camaro, before I end the show, says, awesome, Paul. Your guest seemed like a deep well of a guy. Dude, Jacob, I cannot disagree with you at all. The guy was absolutely amazing. Daryl also jumped in earlier. Daryl Adams came in and said, what did he say here earlier? By the way, Euclid just releasing its first images 20 hours ago. Fascinating stuff. The universe can be accurately mapped, Paul. So can the human brain as of recently, Daryl. And I wonder if that coincidence is... I wonder if that is a coincidence, that at the same time that we learned how to map the human brain, we started to learn how to map the universe. Going back to things that we said within this episode about how much our brains are like the universe and how much gray matter you have within your brain that's actually not even doing much. It's just the stuff in between the actual thing. And if you take your brain and you break it down to how much stuff is going on, to how much stuff is there, it's the same ratio as dark matter to live real matter, which is the 99 point to 1. Same thing in your brain, 99 points to 1. And I got 99 problems. But a show ain't one. My friends, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you with everything. Thank you so much. And number 3, if you would not mind, please like, share, subscribe. I really appreciate you. And with that, I love you. I thank you. And I will see you all right here on the other side.